the theme that I've taken out of this year, and we survived a year with Donald Trump. But the thing that I've taken out of this year is regression, right? We're going backwards in a lot of the things and in processes and beliefs and fundamentals that we have. We're reaching backwards, and we're going back to this mentality of, oh, we need to be great again, so we have to recall a time when we were great. And what that means is we have to recall a time when white Americans were the dominant
Yeah.
race, so to speak, in the United States. Welcome back to Crambox Weekly. I'm your host, Carl, and I'm joined by the lovely Vanessa, my best friend. Vanessa, say hi.
Hello.
Next year, I'll do a better job of letting you introduce yourself.
Yeah, stop stealing my thunder, Carl.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what I want to do this episode, Vanessa, since it is our final episode of the season and of 2025, is I just kind of want to go over a recap of everything that's happened this year, talk about our bingo cards and how full they've gotten, and then roll into like a preview of next year and the things that we have in store for our audience for next year. What do you think?
I think that sounds perfect.
All right.
By the way,
Well,
I just thought you should know, I got a bingo on like blackout. Just so you know.
yeah, I mean, my bingo card was full like month 2 of this year. So February, like
Wait, great.
I had to go get a new one.
Oh man. I feel like that's rough.
And then there were things that were not on my bingo card. Like President Putin getting the red carpet rollout in Alaska with
Oh.
President Trump. That was fun. But before we jump into that, let's just go ahead and get started. Vanessa, do you want to take the first one, or do you want me to go?
I'm gonna let you go on this
You're gonna let
one.
me go?
Yeah.
All right. So what I really I noticed that has been occurring, especially the second half of the year, is that there has been a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric that's been coming out of the right wing of the American political spectrum, um, specifically regarding um, the spread of Islamic beliefs and Islamic fundamental ideals, right? Um, I think large part of it is due to the fact that Mamdani ran for mayor of New York City and then became mayor of New York City, or was elected to be mayor
Because
of New York City.
he's Muslim?
Yeah, he's Muslim, and so there's been. I kind of noticed it when he started to rise, right? Like Mamdani at the beginning of the year was kind of a nobody. Nobody like gave him
And your
any
thoughts?
attention. Nobody gave him any belief about, hey, he's actually going to do good against Andrew Cuomo, who is like one of the leading contenders for the Democrats. But Cuomo lost the Democratic primary to Mamdani. And then Cuomo decided he was going to run independent. But I bring all this up because Mamdani is a democratic socialist. And that's a significant thing, right? And I say that it's a significant thing because we only have one other democratic socialist that's currently in the mainstream
Can you
political
can you
theater.
explain to me, like, real quick, like, a socialist? What's a socialist?
So the long and short of it, right, is that a socialist is someone who believes that the government should control the means of production as well as the 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 method by which those products are sold, right? So
Okay, so kinda like other countries, not democratic.
well, it's different, right? So socialism is a form of economic movement, right? So you have socialism and then you have capitalism, which are the two predominant economic theories that are out there right now. Socialism is where the government kind of controls all the economic levers, whereas capitalism is more of the market controls itself, right? It's open, it's free, and the government really doesn't have much of a role except to kind of regulate and keep things fair. Um, Mom Donnie thinks that the solution to a lot of the problems in America are government responsibilities, right? Like rising food costs. Well, the government needs to open up government grocery stores.
You get but
That's one of the things that he wants to do.
yeah, but then you get
He
greedy
wants to
meat.
put rent caps on rent in New York City, which, granted, paying $4,000 for a studio apartment the size of a closet.
It's high, but it's also you gotta think of the income there too as well, like, it goes with that and the price. I mean, certain cities are really pricey, um, but it also comes down to, as I used to be a renter or not a renter, I used to be a rentor, I guess?
Landlord.
There you go, that's it. I used to be a landlord, and so when I rented out my house, I needed to make sure that it would cover my mortgage, and, you know, if you're buying a house that's $1,000,000, your mortgage is like, most places in New York, they're very high. So, if it's what is it? Like, over $400,000 for a studio apartment, the mortgage on that alone is almost $4,000. So the landlord has to, they're not going to rent something out if they're not going to make what their mortgage is for it. So I see it both ways. I mean, yeah, it's gotten out of control, the price of things, houses and everything, but it's also I don't know how the government can control that.
Right. And so California tried kind of a couple lines with this, right? And I mentioned California because I'm from there and all this stuff. They did a whole, they've passed a whole bunch of laws that basically make it so that the tenant has more rights than the actual owner of the property. Um,
That's in North Carolina too, just FYI.
is it really?
Yeah, like, I there was a bunch of stuff I couldn't do, because of my tenants. They had more rights than I did. It's more to protect them and, like, things that I didn't like, at the end of it, I mean, my renters ended up doing, what, $13,000 in damage to my house, and I got their security deposit of $2,500. And I couldn't go I could have went after them for more if I took them to small claims court, but in the
That
grand
would have
scheme
cost you more in the long run.
exactly, so therefore, they're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter, I can do all this damage, and I'm not held responsible unless they take me to court." So, it's a weird situation when you are a landlord, you really don't have rights, like, I couldn't I'd have to give them 24-hour notice if I was coming over to the house, even if it was just to drive by my house, just to make sure that the, um, the property was getting mowed, different things like that. So in my opinion, it's kinda stupid. It's my
Well, I
house.
mean, I can understand, like, eh, as someone who rented because of the military, like, for many years. I I was lucky enough to have landlords that never dropped by, um, ever. But at the same time, right, I would have hated to have a landlord swing by just on a whim or just knock on my door and be like, "Hey, you pay me rent, so I have access to your home."
Mhm.
Um,
Well, no,
so
I get that part of it. Like, I never would have done that because it's just kinda weird, but, I don't know.
right. And personally, I don't think the government has a place in that type of a situation except in the realm of regulation. But going back to the topic at hand, Mamdani is a Muslim, right? He's an immigrant. So it's not like the right has to worry about him ever becoming president because he can't. Um, but the very fact that we have a rise in democratic socialists, and the difference between a socialist and a democratic socialist is that um, a democratic socialist is someone who believes in having a democratic form of government with a socialist focus when it comes to the economy. Um, so that's really one of the biggest difference between a true socialist and a democratic socialist. But the fact that he's Muslim, like I said, I've noticed that there's been a rise in anti-Muslim rhetoric. The last time I saw anti-Muslim rhetoric like this was um, in the early 2000s after September 11th. So it's shocking to me to see this stuff rising and coming about again, because it's almost like we moved away from it. We learned to understand that not everyone is bad if they're from a different religion or if they're different from us. And
Right.
then 20 years later, we're like, yeah, never mind, fuck that lesson. We're going to move on and go back to the way that we were before, which is extremely um, hateful and angry towards anyone who is different than us.
I think that's also, I think a lot of it also probably stems from the whole ICE situation and like how they're, being racially profiling and everything. We've opened these doors that the government has said, you know what? It's okay to do that. So I mean, now you're coming back to the backlash of it. It's like you can't say this is okay here, but it's not okay here. So it's kind of like unfortunately like you've allowed people to be hateful to others. I mean, that's like basically saying, "Oh, hey, the KKK can do whatever the hell they want to, and they can, we're not going to defend the people that they're hateful against." And that's kind of like this door that they've opened, and I feel like this is the backlash of this door, in essence.
Yeah, and I mean, have only seen it on social media lately, but the just the fact that it's coming about is kind of raising eyebrows for me because, like, okay, well, what's coming next, right?
Yeah,
Um, but you're right, and you and I have talked about the Supreme Court rulings. Matter of fact, I think it was a couple of weeks ago that we broached the topic of the Supreme Court allowing for racial profiling to be um, legal
okay. Yeah,
by ICE and by the police.
yeah,
Um, and then I did an episode with Avery back at the beginning of the year called "Freedom of Speech Brought to You by Jesus and the GOP." And in that episode, we talked about how laws were being passed or being introduced in different states, as well as the federal government, um, that essentially made it so freedom of speech was only freedom of religion was only allowed you had if you were Christian, right? Like you can pray in schools, but you can't have the call to prayer. And that's another thing that I saw coming out of this is people are starting to complain that these Muslim mosques are starting to do calls to prayer the same way that churches do their bells um, throughout the day, and
they've
it's
always
starting
done
to
that.
really upset people. I don't
Yeah,
know if you've seen any of those stories.
I have not. I know that, like, when I was in college, I had to take a world religion course, and actually, I studied Islam, and it's very, very similar to Christianity. Like, there's a lot of, I mean, Jesus is in the Quran and everything, and like, they're very parallel. The stories are very similar. Um, but I actually went to a mosque, and it was very interesting because I knew, like, I couldn't talk to the person, the male, until he spoke with me, and I knew all these rules that they had, and I actually it was they had their prayers, like, they would call the prayers and stuff, and this was here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I went to the mosque there, and, like It was honestly, I didn't feel hate in there, like, because I didn't feel like there was any hate towards me for being a white woman, um, or as being a woman in general. In fact, what I read about the culture and the religion, didn't almost align with what I saw, and they were very welcoming. He knew that we were there, as college students and doing a project on Islam and wanted to see, and it was during, Ramadan, actually, and we got to, speak with some of the female, students that were there, and they taught us how to, wrap the oh my gosh, I always pronounce it wrong, the hijab?
Hijab.
Yep, okay, the hijab, they showed us how to wrap it and everything, and they, you know, showed us a whole bunch of stuff, and I honestly, it's kinda like people who don't study another religion are very quick to hate it, and they're very quick to judge it, versus if people would take the time and educate themselves, like, what we saw for 9/11 was more or less they were the extremists of that religion, they were considered terrorists, they took it for the hateful side of the religion, and people remember that, and that's what they only thing they remember, whereas Islam and Christianity and, Judaism, Buddhism, all those they are fundamentally about loving each other, about having a common peace between everything. They're not built on hate, but because people will focus in on one thing in the Quran or the Bible or anything like that, and they're like, "Oh, well, this is promoting hate," and it's like, no, it's not. I mean, if you look at the Bible and you look back on it, there was a lot of hate. There was a lot of hate and a lot of just nastiness, and, but you can't focus on just that one little aspect of it because these are stories that have been passed down, that, has became the fundamentals of them. But when you get down to it, it literally is all about love, and it's about acceptance and different things like that. People lose sight of that, and they are almost scared of what they don't know, and so therefore, they're going to jump on a bandwagon because, "Oh, I heard that, they're gonna kill these people because of this," and that's what their religion tells them to do. Their religion doesn't tell them to do that. It's something that, unfortunately, social media can manipulate, and people will not step back from that social media post and go further and dig deeper and educate themselves, and then they turn around and they spread it, what they heard, and it's not a fact, it's not correct. It's you have to do more digging, and that's what I highly encourage everybody, when you see these anti, Semitics that are out there against Muslim, against, Christianity, against, any of these religions, take a second and actually educate yourself on the religion before you jump on a bandwagon that you really don't know if this is correct.
Right. And I mean, we could talk about the differences between the religions all day long, right? But this is a political show and not a religious show.
Well, I was just saying they were throwing, people because of their religion and they're in politics. So, you know what? That's that loophole. You like how I
Yeah,
found it?
it always blends, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's just one of those indicative things where, like, when you look at some of these movements, it almost feels like we're going backwards in time. Like just like with this anti-Muslim rhetoric, we're going backwards. We're not going forwards. It's kind of a repeat of history, only
Yeah.
it's a repeat of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, so that was the first thing that I've noticed this year, especially in the second half. What do you got for your aha moments in your bingo card?
My aha moments. I guess my aha moment was, the whole ICE situation. Like I was definitely for, doing immigration the correct way and following it and everything, and I was for about deporting, those that have not, came to this country legally and everything, and I think that protecting our borders is important, um, but I think it was very poorly executed. It was kind of a shock because what they said that they were gonna do, and I mean, I'm quick to be the type like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense," because what they're saying sounds really, really good. But then when the execution came out and how they did it, it's like, "Wait a second, like, you're not even taking into account anything, like, you're just bombarding these people," and, I mean, the fact that people that are US citizens that are, of Mexican or Hispanic descent, they're driving around with their passports on them at all times in case they get pulled over. Um, and to me, it's just like that's sad when you are an American citizen and you have to be worried that, "You know what? My driver's license isn't okay. My Social Security card isn't okay. I have to show them my passport." Like, that's ridiculous. Like, for one, I don't have a passport. Um, Never had one. So, you're telling me that because their Social Security number, like, if they have their card on them and their driver's license, they still need to have their or their passport? Well, what if they don't have a passport? You're gonna deport them? Like, what is going on? Like, to me, I just think that the administration really kinda, like, shit the bed on this one and just really did not execute this correctly at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know me, right? And I'm wearing my Veterans Against Trump hoodie this morning. And what I'll say is, I don't know that it's the administration shitting the bed so much as it's the administration showing its true colors. Um, I, I I legitimately believe that there is a racist, xenophobic aspect to the MAGA movement. There's been what we've seen lately is that there's been a lot of talk about returning to an isolationist mentality and taking a perspective of what happens in Europe is Europe's problem, what happens in the Americas is America's problem. And so uh, I, it's known as like the Monroe Doctrine, right? Like we actually the United States had a doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine, which was that Europe doesn't mess with us and we don't mess with Europe. Um, we've went away from that during World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, Korean War, Afghanistan, Iraq, uh, Ukraine. Um, so I mean, all of those things they built up to a point where we've become like part of the global economy and the global structure. But I do believe that what we are seeing coming out of organizations like ICE is that the true colors of the administration, the true colors of the MAGA movement, are based in xenophobic mentalities and racist mentalities. So I wouldn't say that again. Like I said, I would respectfully disagree with you that this is one that they bungled, and more one that they're actually just being fully transparent with regards to um, what
How
their intent is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. It's just I think that, rather than putting all this money and everything into ICE and, getting rid of those that are here now, why don't you set it up, like, put the money into how they can become legal, how they can do this, like, focus more on that aspect of it versus, "Let's shut it the fuck down, and let's get rid of everybody instantly," because, I mean, that is just, like, not a thing, and it's kinda like, when I went to San Die or lived in San Diego, Like, there wasn't not one time that I could go to Home Depot and there wasn't people outside that were looking to, get picked up for a job. I mean, it was common. It was there. If you needed help with something, you knew you could go to Home Depot and be like, "Hey, look, I don't know how to install this faucet. If I give you 20 bucks, would you help me?" They would do it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's like those people are now being profiled. They are being stopped and, deported. And it's like they're not like I think that, like, if you want to, like, focus on the people that are illegal that have committed crimes, that's one thing, but those that are, trying to work, trying to find jobs, and they're not committing crimes, like, why are we focusing on the law-abiding like, law-abiding immigrants rather than, the law-breaking ones? And if that's the case, why wasn't the first thing that we did rather than, you know, get rid of the ones that are just, "We caught you, ha ha," how they see it, versus, "Hey, let's go into our prison systems first. Who in our prison systems are illegal? Why don't we get rid of them first?" That to me would have made way more sense because in essence, we're paying for them to stay in prison. We're paying they get a full meal, they get medical, they get dental, they get all of this stuff. Okay, you're not a US citizen, you're not entitled to stay in jail. We're gonna go ahead and deport you. And whether Mexican jail's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll take them," or they're like, "No, we don't want them." Okay, that's fine. Well, we'll just send you back anyway. And whether they can do what they want with you. Like, that to me makes way more sense than those that are actually trying to be productive and be contributing to our society.
Right. But so and this is par for the course on the left and the right, right? Every political movement has to have a bad guy, a demon at the gates, so to speak. And w- when it comes to immigration, when it comes to rising housing costs, when it comes to the food prices, when it comes to um, employment rates and the inability for Americans to find jobs, when it comes to the fact that um, our social security safety nets are overtaxed and overburdened, what is happening is that the MAGA movement is saying that immigrants, undocumented immigrants who come to the United States are taking jobs, they are bringing in drugs, they are buying up all the houses, and they're using up all the welfare programs that we have. All of that, right? So like they're a burden on the system, but at the same time they're taking all the jobs and making all the money and buying all the houses, but they're a burden on.
So you can't have both.
Right.
You're
It's bonkers that they go that way. But like I said, every single movement has to have an enemy at the gates. And I
right.
would say that this is one of those situations where the undocumented immigrants are the enemy at the gates, if you will, for a lot of the problems and gripes that the MAGA movement has. Um,
Yeah,
but
but
they're
it's
not the only ones, right? Like
yeah.
we have the issue with transgender Americans being singled out as, especially transgender women being singled out as rapists and just men who want to get into women's locker rooms and they want to stare at women. Meanwhile, we have a president who boasted about walking into the dressing rooms at Miss America pageants and talking about things like grabbing her by the
Gucci?
um yeah. So like it's one of those, it's a weird situation, right? And then if you look at all the news stories, there's super right wing conservative blah 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 gets arrested for child porn. Um Another MAGA uh, commentator or a MAGA influencer gets arrested for trying to proposition a child. Like all of this stuff is out there, and yet we're targeting transgender Americans, specifically trans women.
Right.
Um,
Like, that's
I
not a
mean,
I think that's just what happened to, like, because our country was founded and predominantly was founded on religious basis. It really was. No religion out there is hateful. There's no religion out there that's hateful. I mean, let me take that back because I'm sure there probably is some type of religion that is built upon hate. However, Christianity was not built around hate. It's, love someone like you love yourself. Do unto others as you want done to you. It was all of that. So everything was built upon, being kind to one another. Like, why are we not kind? Why is nobody ever takes a step back and puts themselves in someone else's shoes and says, you know what? Why is this a big deal? Like, why are we hating on them for X, Y, and Z when, a white male does the exact same thing and nobody really says anything or does anything to protect that. But because of this one person may have, and I don't know where all the hate for trans Americans came from other than, somebody saying something and it could have been just, one person may have done something fucked up and that was not kosher per se. And now all of a sudden everybody jumps up onto it and they're like, "Oh, they're all like that." Well, if that's the case, then we as white Americans, we are bigots, we are racists, we are this, like if it we have to, we're murderers, we're rapists, like you can't judge an entire race, a entire sexual orientation based upon the actions of one person, because if that was the case, then we should all be held to those same standards.
true, and 100% valid. However, so a couple of things that I'll contend with you on. I don't believe that this nation was founded on Christian principles. I think it was founded on democratic principles and democratic norms. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the writings, especially in the Federalist Papers, tried any type of involvement of religion into the day-to-day functioning of our government, right? Like there's the whole separation of church and state process, which the clause says, that there shall be no the government shall make, or Congress shall make, no laws um, with respect to religion. So like they're not going to adopt a state religion. They're not going to do anything that favors one religion over another. But back to your point, like I would say that every religion can be twisted into hatefulness. Um, I mean, we have watched the Christian faith get twisted so far that now modern day Christians, they look at the 10 commandments as the commandments that they have to follow rather than the two commandments that were provided by Jesus in the New Testament, which is love your neighbor as you love yourself and place none other above God. Like really simple, easy to follow rules. And we're messing it up because we forget the let he who is without sin cast the first stone. We forget that teaching, right? Because the 10 commandments say that if you lay with a man, if a man lay with a man the way he lays with a woman, then that is a sin. But that was the 10 commandments. That was like the covenant before the covenant of Jesus Christ, right? Like again, we're getting into religion, but my point here is that what for me personally, the theme that I've taken out of this year, and we survived a year with Donald Trump, but the thing that I've taken out of this year is regression, right? We're going backwards in a lot of the things and in processes and beliefs and fundamentals that we have. We're reaching backwards, and we're going back to this mentality of, oh, we need to be great again, so we have to recall a time when we were great. And what that means is we have to recall a time when white Americans were the dominant um,
Yeah.
race, so to speak, in the United States, right? Like it, no one wants to acknowledge the fact that if you go to Stockton, California right now, and you wander around the streets of Stockton, California, the majority of the drug-addled homeless people in Stockton are Caucasian. They're white, right? They're not African American, they're not Asian, they're not Hispanic. They're white, and they're out there because they want to be there. I mean, there's I heard a news story about an organization that actually tries to find people that go missing, and by missing, like they intentionally just go onto the streets and disappear. And there was one instance where like this guy moved from North Carolina to San Francisco, got involved in drugs, and when they finally did find him and they were like, "Hey, we want to bring you back." This guy's response is, "I'm not ready." Right? So again, we keep putting the blame on everything that is not us, right? And we're going backwards and we're trying to find a time where America is great, but only for a specific group of people.
Right. I think
Um,
that
and so
that's a
that's what I think the theme of this year for me has been.
right. It's only for who you think America was great for. And I can see how that, you know, is a thing. I can definitely see that point. Think that personally, I think that unfortunately, and I mean, we've talked about it this year. It's like in previous episodes, I just feel like no matter what, we haven't grown as a nation. We tend to regress every time a new president comes in. We regress and we don't move forward. And we might move forward for a moment on something, but it's going right back. And it's that whole bouncing back and forth and oh, like we can do it better or we can do this differently and da 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 instead of acknowledging the goods that the previous administration did and building on those, we tend to get rid of all of it and try to start over and reinvent the wheel. And it's like, no, it, take what's working for this, whatever, let's say President A, whatever President A passed in his 4 years that he was in term. Let's take what he passed, see what's working for it, what's not working, and let's try to improve on what they've started rather than get rid of it altogether and let's start over. It doesn't work, America. This is not working, and we have not really grown as a country in a long time. As I see it, I feel like we just keep going back in the past, and it's unfortunate.
So there was an equal opportunity executive order that was signed in the 1960s, and it dealt with equal opportunity employment. And it a lot of people can point to it as like the initial DEI executive order. And when President Trump took his office for the second time back in January, one of the first things he did is write an executive order that eliminated that executive order. Confusing, but my point is that we have gotten to a point where our executive branch tends to govern without Congress.
Yeah.
Um, and they tend to write policy and write law and legislate all within the executive branch, and Congress just kind of sits there and throws mud at each other like they're a bunch of apes in a zoo. Um, and so like this is a great opportunity for us to segue and talk about next year and what we're going to look at next year. Um, and for those of our listeners who've been loyal and been with us since the beginning, we kind of tried and made an attempt, Avery and I, at the beginning of 2025 to look hard at what Congress is doing. And not going to lie to you, we got overwhelmed because we were doing it all by ourselves. And what I mean by that is we didn't have the tech or the programs to allow us to pull the information and the raw data sets, and we were having to watch all the hearings, and we're having to uh, download on our own, like every single day, the information that happened throughout the day. And what resulted was us getting burnout by the middle of the year. And so taking those lessons and the meandering that we did towards the end of the year, and Vanessa, you joined me in October. Was it October?
Yes.
Yep, you joined me in October, and we kind of meandered a little bit. We decided to do themes, and then from there we realized that we needed to talk about the news a little bit more. So what I can tell you is that we're going to reformat the show, and we're going to put in a little bit more, where we're going to restore our look at Congress. And the reason for that is because it is it's one of those things that's super important to me, and to Cranbox Politics as a company, that we get the information to you, the listener, about what is going on in Congress, because no one really covers Congress. And so we've written, or we as a company have written a couple programs. Um, One of those is actually responsible for collating all the votes, and I mean, it's going to grow exponentially. But the idea here is that we're building the baseline for the archivist, which is expected to roll out, not next year, but hopefully by the end of 2027. Um, but w- what this back architecture is supposed to do is allow us to develop those baseball cards, so that we can let you, the listener, but also the American public, know, hey, this is your representative. Like, this is what they are doing. This is how they're doing. And we Vanessa, I wanted to talk to you about it, but this program, we've got it built for internal use. Right now, it's local to my network, so Vanessa, you won't be able to access it from your computer.
Darn it.
Working on that. I'll get it to a point where you can do it. Um, but I was able to compile all the votes, so all the vote counts, for the Senate and the House over the last year. So the first session of the first half of the first session of the 119th Congress. And so what I can tell you is that I found some surprising things. For example, Vanessa, you and I, we have the same representative, Congressman Gregory Murphy. He missed 37 votes.
What do you mean he missed them? Like
Just didn't
didn't
vote,
do it?
didn't
Just
show up, didn't participate in those votes.
hmm, that's not good.
It's not right, but it's telling, right? And what I mean by that is, I did not expect to be able to pull this type of information and these kinds of data points.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't think that the average American, and I say this because I didn't know, and I consider myself an average American. I didn't realize just how inactive some of these Congress people can be, especially people like Murphy, who sit in a safe district, and are sitting on a massive war chest totaling around $2.5 million that he can use in the event that he does get challenged.
Jesus.
Um, like, he doesn't feel a need to go out and actually do his job on Capitol Hill, much less come back to our area and actually talk to his constituents. Because guess how many town halls Gregory Murphy had this year?
I'm gonna guess 0.
Big, big goose egg, right? Like, and that's par for the course. So I bring up Greg Murphy because he's our rep, right? And the first thing that I do when I pull this data is I go directly to the people that are representing us, because you and I, we live in the district, and it's the most effective way to make sure that everything works.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's interesting, honestly, like, that's super like, super scary, and it's super because they are representing us. So, at the end of the day, it's like, if he's doing it for North Carolina, you know, what about the people in, California or Wyoming or, Utah? Like, are they actively getting and doing, it'd be interesting to find out what states representatives are hitting 100% of the votes and they're voting 100% of the time. Because I think that would tell you and, whether that's important. Like, that's so important because they've been elected to hold us, and if you're only doing your job 50% of the time, what are you doing the other 50%? Because you're not doing anything to help us, you're doing nothing, in essence, is that how it comes down to. So, it'd be interesting to find out what states actually are hitting those 100%, and how long have they been in office? Does that, contribute to it? Because, that you can in any job, you can get burned out. So if, you're in the position and people vote you into this position, are you actually doing your job or are you just sitting by and being like, it's fine? No, they don't know what I'm doing behind the scenes because like you said, I mean, it took a while for you to find the information and gather that information. If I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know you could get that information. To say this person's been in here for 40 plus years and, when they first started, they were at 100% doing their voting, doing their job and everything, but around, the 5th year, the 10th year, whatever it may be, you started to see that steady decline, and if the decline isn't noticed by the American people, um and they're thinking that who is representing them is doing their job, and come to find out, you know what? No, they're not. They haven't even helped or contributed to any of this. That's an issue, and, that's where that should be on, like you said, their baseball card. "Hey, let's see, what is your overall rating? Because if you're not doing your job, you shouldn't be voted in again." And I think getting that out to everywhere is super important because that, in essence, will tell you in a snapshot instantly, they're not doing their job. They shouldn't remain in office. They're not doing what they have told you as their voter should be doing.
Right. And there are a plethora of websites and organizations out there that do the work of like, oh, well, how does your representative fall out with regards to like specific issues like trans rights, LGBTQ rights, but they don't go into depth on how active your representative is in that region. There's also a lot of websites and organizations out there that do a lot of good work in digging into um, the the monetary aspect, right? So shining light on whether or not a senator or a representative has been purchased by special interests, right? You can track all of that stuff. A lot of good stuff is out there, and so as we've developed these things, what our goal is not to duplicate effort and reinvent the wheel, but necessarily to find the things that are not being discussed, like participation rates, like um, activity rates, like how well is your representative representing you? Are they actually doing their job? And so what we will do, and this is part of that preview, is next year, um, as part of the different structure, we're going to talk about specific representatives. Maybe we'll choose a state, or maybe we'll choose um, representatives by alphabetical order. Um, but what we'll do is every single week we'll bring up one or two politicians, or excuse me, one or two representatives from the Senate and from the House, and we'll talk about their records that we have so far. Right now, we only have the last 365 days compiled. So the last year is what we have as far as data goes. So we won't be able to talk to like, hey, at this point in time, Greg Murphy was in his first year, he was 100% involved, he was 100% active, but by year 5, he fell out, he got burned out. You can see that trend line. We don't have that data yet, but that's something that I wrote down because I want to be able to bring that in. We're what I want to do is I want to talk about that participation, right? So that we can see which states delegations are actually more active and prone to representing their people. Because right now, if you look at the overall approval rating of Congress, it's between 20 and 30%,
That's
which is
so
insanely low.
sad.
But when you look at the overall approval rating of an individual congressman, that is generally higher in the 60-70% range. So we take this, oh, it's not my representative, it's someone else's representative. So what we want to do, or what we will be doing, is we're going to shine a light on that so that we can hopefully allow people to know or to understand how their representative is actually representing them, and how well of a job they are doing on Capitol Hill.
No, I think that's fantastic. I'm excited about that.
Next year, also, we have midterms coming up. So expect a little bit of time in the show as we work through it to cover some of the midterm elections, some of the more strenuous midterm elections, talking about polling data, and reviewing kind of some of the things that uh, we should know leading into it. Probably going to have a little bit of a bias towards the third congressional district of North Carolina, um, and the North Carolina Senate race. You know, uh, Governor Cooper, or former Governor Cooper, is running for office. He's actually going to run for senator against a Trump-backed member, because um, Tom Tillis decided he didn't want to run again. So we're going to see that coming up, and hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit more about some of those key races. Um, and then I'm sorry, Vanessa, I'm running. So if you have something to chime in, just
No,
chime in.
no, no, keep going. No, I'm really excited to see, what happens, what we're moving towards. I really enjoy that.
And then this year, I've been doing a lot of guest appearances on a lot of different podcast shows. Kind of Heisman the having guests on our show, because I just didn't know how to fit it into the overall theme and the way that we were working and where we were going to put it. So we have started, or I have started doing interviews with guests, right? So Vanessa, you and I talked about Dr. Cardell. I finally did sit down with him, and we discussed his views of socialism as being untenable, and something that is not sustainable as an economic model. And so I'm excited to say that I finished that interview. All I have to do now is kind of do some editing, but that will be our first of our monthly expert interviews. So we've got a couple lined up um, that will be bringing these folks onto the show, and every month it'll be a different individual, different expert, in a different format, just to allow for the audience to hear from someone other than you and I, who, again, average Americans, right? Like we have this broad spectrum picture. We're able to look at things from that perspective, but sometimes we need a little bit of a narrower scope. So bringing on those experts is going to be hugely important to the next season. And then finally, like we talked about the internal structure that we're building. The goal with that internal structure is that we're going to take that uh, that program that we wrote, and we're going to turn it into an application that can be accessed by our listeners. What that looks like, how that looks, what how is it going to be built? Is it going to be a web application? Is it going to be an actual iOS application or an Android application? I don't know yet, right? But if you are someone who is interested in that stuff and you want to be able to have um, firsthand access to an application or a program that does the things that we're doing, which is providing just the raw data, then I encourage you, leave a comment below. Or if you're an audio listener, leave a comment in the comment section saying, show me the data. And what we'll do is we'll reach out to you, get you on a mailing list and get you set up so that we can get you into the beta program when we do roll it out next year, so that you can actually have the ability not just to listen to what we're saying about the data, but actually participate in seeing the data yourselves. So that's what we have for next year, and I'm really excited because it's going to be a fun time as we roll into 2026.
Nice. I like that. I do.
Yeah. So um, that's all I have for this final episode of 2025 and final episode of season two. So I really do appreciate you being my host on, or excuse me, my guest host on the tail end of the year, and I'm excited to have you with me as we roll into 2026.
Perfect. Yeah, me too. I'm excited. I definitely would love to, get those, you give me some representatives, you take some representatives, and we can compare the two and see, how it goes. I think that would
Yeah,
be fantastic.
yeah, it'll be a good time. But until then, everyone have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year's, and we will see you in January.
Yep. Happy holidays, everyone.